Well, hello everyone. It's been quite a while since I've done a video, and for those who aren't familiar, if you've stumbled across this, I've mostly been doing flight simulator videos. Big fan of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and just kind of talking about the airline industry and stuff. But I feel like doing something different because I'm a big golfer fan. Well, golfer and golf fan. Not good at golf, but I enjoy it a lot. I've been very fortunate to play some nice courses and travel a bit to play golf. But I do love watching the professional tour. And what's kind of interesting, really the first time, and probably the video game element in terms of professional golf games, we're going to now have two head-to-head competing golf games. With first the PGA Tour 2K23, and you can count 2K21. That's only a couple years old, versus EA Sports re-entering the game for the first time since 2015 with the Roy McIlroy game. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to do. Well, first give like my reaction to the career mode, because this is a big part of the selling point for me with the new EA Sports game. And there'll be other stuff like gameplay and so forth that we can go into a little later. But I thought for this video it'd be kind of cool to compare both career modes of both games. See the similarities, the differences, potential approach, and then kind of compare it to the past, because the last time they had all four majors was in Tiger Woods 14, because the Roy McIlroy didn't have that, and that was kind of like a big negative for me, why I just passed on that game, and the series just kind of died right then and there, to be honest. Again, we can go into the history in a bit, but I thought what we'll do here, originally I thought maybe playing the whole trailer, but honestly, it's everywhere, and I can post a link to the whole trailer. But I'm going to go through the trailer and kind of pause it and give my thoughts during the process, and kind of explain, kind of like, what it means for the game, but also like, oh, well, this is new or different, or they've done this before, or 2K has this, or 2K doesn't have. Because I think it's really interesting, kind of seeing the different approaches both games are kind of about to embark on, really, in the near future. Anyway, let's kick off the trailer and we kind of go from there.
In EA Sports PGA Tour Career Mode, you can play out your dreams of becoming a major champion. To begin your career, create and customize a golfer. Choose a swing animation.
All right, so first things first, and this is this is really the big difference between the two games out of the get-go, is the majors, and we're going to go to their site because it shows there. So they have the four majors, while 2K does not. And there's a couple reasons for this why they don't. The majors are actually not run by the PGA Tour. They're run by four different organizations. This is going to be really boring for about a minute, but trust me, I have to explain this. But like the Masters run by Augusta National Golf Club, the PGA is not related to the Tour. This is the Professional Golfers Association of America. Should be PGAA if you really think about it. But what that group is they're like the pros that are at like golf courses that are teaching the game. If you ever stumble across a golf course and see like a group of kids learning the game, that's usually a PGA licensed pro. So they're really more about those professionals who are kind of running the game or teaching the game and kind of growing the game on the ground level over the professional tour level, which is the PGA Tour. And then the Open and U.S. Open. The Open is run by the R&A, and the U.S. Open is USGA. And these two that run this tournament run they create the rules of golf. So like, if they're going to make changes like roll back the golf ball, these two join together to make that decision. Or like, oh, we're going to make changes on no more like like how you can hold a putter. They made a change like that, and both of them kind of came to that decision. So these are the two that create the rules of golf, and these are the two oldest majors as well. The Open's been around for over 150 years. Just had the 150th Open last year. U.S. Open's like the 123rd this year, I think, or 124th roughly. There's a couple of years they didn't play during the World Wars and so forth, so technically even older than that if you really want to get technical when the first one took place. But anyway, that's the big difference. That's kind of the start when it mentioned the major championship, so let's get back to it.
Swing tempo, preferred shot shape, and ball trajectory. Then equip your golfer with clothing and accessories. Rock a new fit for each round. Begin your career.
Apologize. Keep trying to hit pause and just goes to full screen for some reason. But anyway, just a quick thing here. That's pretty similar to 2K with that setup. Now, they did a little differently in this year's... Sorry, 2K23. 2K21's a little different than this. But kind of similar with like, choosing the type of player stuff and so forth. Or at least that's from the early looks. Like, I'll just go back here. Swing animation. Like, okay, you got handiness, yeah, typical. Now, course management, I think that's interesting. That's not in 2K, and obviously it's just showing a brief trailer here, so I'm curious what that really means. Because I can see that when it comes to course management, or at least like example with the 2K games, you can make your player, let's say, kind of more balanced, or you can go really like full on power or be a great short game player. So if you like full on power, then your management's about hitting as far as you can and finding the sweet landing spots so you have a very close approach. While like a short game player may not have the distance, but maybe he has a decent iron game, and then around the greens he's really good where he has great chipping and putting skills to save strokes, basically. So very curious what that is. Real quick here.
Then equip your golfer with.
Yeah, this is all very similar to clothes and stuff. The big difference, though, which I can show in a bit, it looks like you can customize the bag, like the actual bag itself. I don't think you can. I didn't see that. I haven't seen that in 2K. And I don't know about the head covers either, so that's kind of neat. But the clubs and clothes, obviously, a lot of the same brands and above. There'll be some differences. But anyway, this is where we're going to get into the meat of this video.
Begin your career from one of 3 points: the Amateur Championship, the Korn Ferry Tour, or head straight to the PGA Tour. The first route lets you start at various amateur tournaments. Included here are the U.S. Amateur Championship presented by the USGA, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and others. Finish your amateur career in Q School and compete for a spot on the Korn Ferry Tour. Or start your career on the Korn Ferry Tour and compete to earn the ultimate prize, a PGA Tour card. Advance directly to the PGA Tour to compete against some of the greatest golfers in the world, all while vying for a major championship title. Play for the green jacket at the Masters. Strive for a rare Grand Slam title. Win the FedEx Cup and experience other premier PGA Tour events along the way. The Season Hub is your home base. From here, view the entire calendar of events and track career progress and other milestones in the Career Mastery tab. Build your golfer's skill set from the...
This one I thought I'd stop that. I made the same mistake. As I said, this is kind of a bush league. I'm not doing any, I just kind of recording as we go. But let me get to the good part. Here. Alright, so here's where there's some similarities and differences. So the similarities between the two games, the 2K and this game, is the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour. So reality in the 2K, you can only be a professional golfer, and you kind of go into the Korn Ferry Tour first, which is usually it's like the minor league system, basically. You got to do well enough there in terms of either, there's multiple ways, there's a Q school and all this, but the simplest way, when you're on the Korn Ferry Tour, if you win 3 times in the same year, or you finish well enough in the money and standings to qualify for a card for the PGA Tour, then you go into the PGA Tour. I know there's going to be some changes in the next year or so with some of this, with college players getting direct entry when they graduate or leave college, like for the top college, a few top college players and so forth. And then obviously with the wraparound season, it's going to become more of for players who didn't finish in the top 70 to keep their card and not go back to the Korn Ferry Tour. So they're trying to do a little more regulation system here and identify the best 70 players over like the top 150, kind of quote having the same status. That's going in the weeds, but basically this kind of the system works. It's like that in 2K. We can take a quick look here and we'll go back to the video on the big difference here. Like in my career, excuse me. So here's the FedEx Cup standings. This is the season, but it's just the, this is the PGA Tour. But there's no, when you create your player, you can't. Sorry, when you create your player, there's no amateur mode, and it's just kind of, play and get in, and then you got to do well enough to stay in, which usually means making the playoffs, which is usually at the end of the regular season. Down here, like this is the first playoff event. So, and the new season is set up where it used to be like the 120. See, this is the old one they got in here, 125. That's now 70 this year. So if you're not in the top 70, then you need to play in the wraparound season to keep your card for the following year. I'm not sure if EA is going to have that fully implemented or not. They had the benefit coming out later now that maybe they got the updated rule standards and changes, but basically, like, if you make the playoffs and you guarantee a card for the next year, unless you've won a tournament, there's other ways to keep your card, like won a tournament or major, then you get like a 5-year exemption to stay in the top tour and so forth. But anyway, that's the similarities on the PGA professional level. The big difference is this part here. I mentioned the USGA and RNA. These are the amateur. They have you can actually start as an amateur here, so you can do the amateur chance to earn a invitation to the Masters and the U.S. Open. There's actually a little flaw there. So technically, if you won the U.S. Amateur Championship, you also get an invite to the Open Championship as well. The only one you don't get is the PGA Championship. That's only for the professional golfers. The only way an amateur will ever play in it, if they won a major, like the Masters beforehand, and decide not to become a pro after that, then they could be an amateur in that tournament. But that's never happened, or at least not in decades when the last time an amateur won a major. So but in reality, but anyway, that's again in the weeds. But this is kind of like the big difference here. They're gonna have this amateur round, and we're gonna kind of go
Tour,
here again.
or head straight to the PGA Tour. The first round.
Now this is great, and this is what I'm really happy about this game. This is actually the Women's Amateur Championship at Augusta National Golf Club. So they actually got someone looks at the woman. You can actually compete as a woman amateur. They did have the LPGA. So they have LPGA pros now in 2K23, but it's just the pro level. There's no amateur, and they're just playing the PGA Tour. Like it shows, like again. Actually, I think it's here. See, look at that. Lexi Thompson's in the FedEx Cup standings. That will never happen in real life because she plays in LPGA, which is the race to the CME Cup. The FedEx Cup is the men's side, the PGA Tour. You know, it's like men's basketball tournament and the women's basketball tournament. You don't see women's South Carolina team take on men UCLA. It's just not going to happen. It's so, and I don't know. We'll go a little more details. I think it's not going to be too different, but I do know, at least from this perspective here, it does show the LPGA, and I do think there's an LPGA tournament for sure in it. I just don't know if they're going to do the whole season or mix and match the two, because it does look a little interesting in a second.
Lets you start at various amateur tournaments. Included here are the U.S. Amateur Championship presented by the USGA, the Augusta National Win.
It was on the schedule page. All right, I can't find it. Oh wait, right here. Yeah, so this is clearly a female player, but yet it's showing the PGA Tour here. So this is the American Express. That's a PGA event, men's side. These are the men's tournaments. That said, there's a chance I think they do have the Evian Championship in this because they have its course, which we'll go against later. But see, that's an example where I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be like the 2K where the women's side is technically in the men's tournaments or they'll have its own schedule. That is very unclear right now. I hope they have their own schedule because I do think the LPGA pros deserve more of their more exposure, and they deserve that. And I think the women's side is growing. There's great players on that side, and I'd say they're very fun to watch. Like they're very good at fundamental golf. They're not like Bryson DeChambeau with a very crazy swing that looks painful on your back. They're more about smooth and tempo, and not trying to like overpower a course. They're trying to create weird swings that only works for them. They're really about the fundamentals. And the cool thing, they've actually had the female golfers. I think first came in 2014, around that time. This is an old. They got some of the old pages from the 14 games still in EA. It's like buried though. But see, they had Lexi Thompson in that as well. The LPGA Tour. Yeah, so they had an update career pair. So they did actually have an LPGA Tour pad back in the day. I sadly don't remember playing that version much. I know the LPGA on this game. I did play this game a lot, but I was just playing the male golfer for the 4 majors because this is the last time they had the majors in any of the games was in Tiger Woods 14. But see, yeah, it's the Metro Tour, and they have the QS School. So they actually did an LPGA, 22 events, and they had one major, though, just the Kraft Nabisco Championship, which is now the Chevron Championship. So they didn't have any other 4 majors. They didn't have the U.S. Women's Open or the British Women's Open or the Women's PGA Championship. Again, unclear that's even in this game, but we'll go over that in a second.
Options on your career.
But that's the women's side. But kind of backtracking to where this started, with this here.
Started very.
See, the women's Augusta National. But this is where it's the big difference. So now you got the U.S. Amateur Championship, the RNA Championship, and this I'm extremely impressed and surprised where my mouse is. This is the Asia Pacific Championship, and this is the Latin America Championship. And this is actually run by Augusta National Golf Club. Their big goal is to grow the game globally. Have more of these amateur tournaments overseas to try to grow the game, and it's actually been becoming more and more successful. Um, like Hideki Matsuyama, who won the Masters a couple years ago, or 3 years ago, roughly. He also won the Asia Pacific Amateur Championship and got into Augusta as an amateur and was the low-end that year. So it has shown how the reach of this is really starting to work. And I hope it continues to grow because there's some great players from Latin America as well the last few years have really risen. So they've really been very progressive growing the game. Same with now with the National Women's Amateur. There's only been around a few years at most. I'm glad to include this. One note though, only the final round is at Augusta National Golf. The first 2 rounds are actually it's a 3-round tournament, I think, but maybe it is 4. But I know like only the last days at Augusta and the other days are actually a nearby different course. That's not in this game. It looks like this played all at Augusta National Golf Club, but that's really nitpicky. But the fact they have this and you can be a woman amateur is a great start. And then it shows the men's side here with these other tournaments. Now I am hopeful looking at this list because they don't scroll beyond this screen here.
Various amateur tournaments included here.
Yeah, see, they kind of stopped there. I'm hopeful that that also includes the women's side because there's a U.S. Women's Amateur Championship and one for the RNA, and it'd just be kind of neat to have those opportunities for a person who wants to play as a female player or see the journey on the female woman's side of the game because it has, as I said earlier, it has really grown. And there's some, it's just a lot of good golf. If you ever watch it, you'd be amazed just how competitive the women's side is nowadays. And on a global scale, it isn't dominated by Americans. And in fact, it's probably, I'd say, more Asia-centric in terms of domination in regards to a lot of great players from Korea. We got New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Brooks, Henderson. It's just so good right now on the women's side. But anyway, now that we kind of focus on the amateur, we'll go through a couple more things here. Because I think after this, we're about to go into the course list.
Here are the U.S. Amateur Championship presented by the USGA, the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and others. Finish your amateur career in Q School and compete for the championship presented by the USGA, the Augusta
Here we go. This is great. This is actually like very similar to the actual graphics package that Augusta produces that's utilized on either, I think NBC shows the women's amateur, and then CBS uses like the similar graphics package from Augusta. So it's always a unique graphics package. So I'm very hopeful they'll be doing that for the 4 majors. They actually did that in the Tiger Woods game. I think here, before we go on the list, see, this is actually, let's see. Yeah, it's very small. We're going to zoom. It's going to look kind of ugly. This is like the U.S. Open's graphics pack, so it's a little different. Actually, no, this might be Pebble Beach Pro, but they actually had like unique graphics package for each major to represent how it actually looks on TV. Very loose there in the actual presentation mode so far, but when they have dropped little stuff like this, it looks very promising.
National Women's Amateur and other. The Korn Ferry Tour. PGA Tour to compete against some of the...
I've kind of discussed this already with the PGA Tour earlier, just the... I'll go over like the tournaments and stuff later, but I discussed the structure and everything here.
Greatest golfers in the world, all while vying for a major championship title. Play for the green jacket at the Masters. Strive for a rare Grand Slam title. Win the FedEx Cup and experience other premier PGA Tour events along the way. The Season Hub is your home base. From here, view the entire...
So this is the tournament stuff. I'm gonna jump ahead here. The honesty, I'm probably not gonna fully play it, but it's really just kind of like we saw earlier. It's about settings, the game, some gameplay stuff which they've done before, your clubs. I touched this earlier, but this is kind of like showing the RPG elements of your skills, which I kind of like. I think this looks a little more in depth than the 2K. We're gonna look at 2K right now, actually. So, this always gets a... Here goes my golfer. This is the leveling system when it loads. And this is actually a complaint I have. It's a little slow. See, it's kind of more... here you go. Trailblazer, normal shots, swing path. So, it's like when you activate it, you miss less... miss 3 fairways and deactivate 1 fairway. So, it's kind of like these little boosts to help you with, flight boost, some heavy rough or iron. So, it's really not about... individual skill. Like it's more like it's showing certain clubs, which makes sense. We'll compare it again, but it's more like about just the club itself. It's not about power, because honestly, the power doesn't matter with the drive, but it matters with all clubs. If you hit your driver further, you can hit your fairway woods and your hybrids further and your irons farther. If you're more accurate, that kind of also can apply to the other clubs. Obviously there's a difference the way you swing the driver and an iron, but you see players that are consistent in key areas. You see that in the professional or high amateur level. Now we go back to the EA Sports. See, they're kind of doing a little similar, but look at this. So you have approach, accuracy, control, recovery. So they should show driving, but then it's kind of like, all right, it's not going to be wedge. It'll be approach for both irons and wedges and your fairway woods. And then the short game is where it becomes more about your chipping and stuff. Putting makes sense. It is its own thing, has always been. But then you have overall power that impacts everything. While here, again, one more time, you kind of it really just seems to impact the driver here. Fairway finder, tee time, it's about your timing here. I haven't unlocked these later ones. Again, I've only played this so much. So it's a little interesting seeing the difference here. And then you have the archetype, which is here. See, I'm a rhythm player. Maybe with a cheat draw, drop in distance, but they put swing quality above all else. So it's about having the better swing timing and stuff, and not worrying about power. Where like this person, his swing path and stuff may be off, but at least his power. So even when he's offline, he may be okay because he's going to carry it probably another 40, 50 yards than the rhythm player. And then you got the others like sculptors, ball flight, and usually a good iron player. Yeah, that one's interesting. And then Griezmann's just a short game type player. Yeah. But that's really the only thing left that was in this actual video before I go into the courses and tournaments, which I think is going to be a lot of the meat of this game. Well, let me put it this way, backtrack. You're going to need good gameplay to stand out, and that's for both games. There's some debate with the 2K game. It's pretty solid gameplay, but there's they got the 3-click system. There's some issues with chipping right now, or wedges, or for a while, sand bunkers they've changed that wasn't a fan of. Again, this has been a good month or so since I last played it. Just been busy with other stuff. But yeah, see, real quick, this is the open here. See, it's got its own stands with the logo and stuff. That's how it kind of looks to do that blue color tint. They used to do a little more yellow, which I kind of miss, to be honest. You never really see any stands at Augusta. And they got the actual trophies and trying to recreate the presentation, which I think is really cool. But now we're going to go into the second part of this video, which is really going to be the courses and tournaments, the similarities, the differences. I actually want to compare it to the past Tiger Woods game because I think it's a very good comparison because it's the first time, as I said, all 4 majors in it since the Tiger Woods 14, which really came out 13. So it's been a decade since we've had all 4 majors. But where do we need to go? I think it was right. It's around here. All right, here's a good one. We'll start here. We'll go back. We're we're jumping around a bit. This is the American Express. That is not in 2K. I can show you that right now. Because that's at PGA West. And for starters, you're probably wondering why they both got the PGA Tour. Why don't they got the same terms of all the tournaments? Well, I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, you got to get the actual course, which is hard to do because you got to get the rights to that course, and then you got to map it out and build it. And then I think you also got to get the rights of the tournament because it's weird. So the PGA Tour hosts these tournaments, but there's also like local organizations that run it. Like a good example here, as we go backtrack, the Shriners Children's Open. This is actually run by a group in Las Vegas, partnership with the Shriners Children's Hospital. So it's kind of like a way to they raise a lot of funds for the local Shriners Children's Hospital network. Then you go to Farmers Insurance. That's run by there's a local group with Farmers Insurance as the main corporate sponsor. So it's kind of like a mix of local people that run it with the PGA being on the PGA Tour. Again, this is like the weeds of the management structure, but you need to briefly understand that's why not all of them are going to have the same tournaments, why the entire schedule verbatim isn't in these games and never has been. So there's just a lot of it shows the complexity of golf and making a golf game in regards to capturing professional level, in regards to getting the rights, getting these actual courses, mapping them all out. It isn't like the NFL where, okay, you got all 30 teams and 30 stadiums and, that's it. They don't, every once in a while they might do a renovation and move to a new stadium. But it's not like their tournament like the BMW Championship that moves to new courses every year, or the majors that move to different courses, minus Augusta, of course. That's always the same one. So this is one of the first examples of this. They have the American Express that is not in this game. If it was, it would be right before this. Instead, it's just kind of their own made-up tournaments and their own kind of like fictional courses they've created.
Hub is your home base. From here, view the entire calendar of events and track.
Yeah. So here's a good example. They show both here. So for one, it's interesting. It shows EA Sports and then it shows the PGA Tour. So I'm curious what this is. Why it's doing that. Like, is this like an amateur event maybe? No, it's not. It's just 550. Oh, I see what they're doing. So, sorry, I kind of jumped here. So what they're doing here, they're showing like an elevated event where you get extra points. That's a new thing. There's a thing called designated events. They're quote elevated. They got a higher purse. I'll show you an example here on the PGA Tour's website schedule, which is kicking off right now this week, actually, for the match play event. But as you go here on the schedule, so this is an alternative event. We kind of show, see, it says lock, you need to qualify, and then it has a small event that's 300 points. That's what this is. So this is an alternative event, and this is the elevated event that's $20,000. And then a regular event where most of the tour can qualify. It's more optional for the best players who want to go in. They can just go and play for, less money, and they only get about 500 points. Again, a little bit of the match, but it's kind of understanding what you're seeing here and why this is kind of locked out and why there's two in the same here. And you can see here that, they don't have the rights for the event after. Well, technically they should. We'll go to that in a second. Again, this is just kind of a rough schedule. Actually, no, this is actually in March. This makes sense. I take that back. Yeah, because after the players, you actually have this event, the match play, so it's not in the game. Again, that might be a little hard to program. It's a very unique event, but that's what they do. That's what this game does. It's why it's got this is the Champions Invitation. It's really it's the Century Tournament Champions, so they don't have the rights to it or the course. So they kind of, in a way made it up, with their own course and like a loose name. But then you see like the official tournament's got like the actual corporate logos and stuff, and then it's kind of like, okay, that's not one. That is one. You can just tell with the MasterCard logo and the actual stands. And here's like a alternative event for people who didn't get invited to the better tournaments. But again, just a brief explanation what this is. But you kind of started seeing the difference here.
Career progress and other milestones in the career mastery.
All right, so before we go, basically just focus on courses from this video. This is kind of similar what's also in 2K. They got the FedEx Cup rank and stuff. Obviously,
tab.
I think top 10. I gotta take a look at that. The big difference is, I don't think they have OWGR. That's not in the game in 2K. They just have the FedEx Cup standings. And yeah, again, a little confusing. FedEx Cup is really just for the PGA Tour. OWGR is world rankings, which could be from other tours. You get the most points for your ranking on the PGA Tour because it's the toughest tour. But let's say you're playing in Europe on the DP World Tour, you can still get ranking points. It's just, you may not get as many, but there's a lot of factors what happens in that. So in terms of the tournament strength and so forth. But anyway, that's going to be about it for the video. We'll go over some courses stuff. But I want to show just real quick, again, see, it's just this. Just the FedEx Cup stand. There's no world ranking points. That's a difference right there. I think here, I think the season stats. Let's see here. Yeah, so this kind of shows you a little similar. There's their top 10s, 20s, cuts made, scoring average. I'm curious if this actually seems a little more in depth than what we see in this video as of now. But again, that kind of just, they're doing the Masters. Like they got the majors chapter, so it looks like kind of like a quest thing. There's something about quests I did see somewhere in here actually. It might be here. No, it was somewhere. I did see the word quest somewhere, so I'm curious what that is. Yeah, here, see? Quest. They didn't show that at all, as far as I can tell in this video. But again, it makes me curious what that is. So, but anyway, this kind of just shows you the comparisons, differences. I hope they do have a lot of these stats. It's kind of cool to see, like, how you doing on short, medium, long. Like data in golf is just exploded now with the way they're capturing all this data and so forth. Obviously, trophies. Do one more, then we'll go back. What we need to do. Yeah, see PGA Tour event. See, what's this one? Yeah, see, it's kind of like generic, but then it shows the actual licensed tournaments and their trophies, which do look like this. That is the Pebble Beach Pro-Am Trophy or the Waste Management. So kind of cool. I hope they do something similar. I know they will, at least for the majors. I can tell they got the road trophies, but when they do have the licensed tournaments, I do like the actual legit trophies they got. So, John Deere, that's always a cool one, even though it's a small tournament. This is kind of the breakaway in this, so yeah, but it's kind of a way to look at it. And then you got the playoff trophies and stuff. This is the FedEx Cup, so that will be in this. I'm going to say 99% sure they'll have at least this in, or at least these three of the playoffs, because that was one of their early advertisements when they announced this game about a couple years ago, and how it's going to have the playoff events. Okay, but we're going to go into the courses. We've already explained the majors, but in here, there's a little tie that this is where basically the Masters is. But the old course, St. Andrews, that's the host of the last Open, and they do the Open there every few years at least. Pebble Beach is interesting because there's two ways they could be doing this, and same with Torrey Pines on here, which I know is on here. Yeah, so Torrey Pines as well. These are two courses that have hosted U.S. Opens, but also host an annual PGA event. So I'm assuming they'll use them for the U.S. Open rotation. They kind of map out like certain, like what they've done in the past, like in 14. There were certain courses that just used them for the U.S. Open or the Open Championship or the PGA Championship. And then it's just every few years you do your career mode and you go to the next season or a couple of seasons. They'll have a rotation of like several courses, just swap in and out when they generate a new season. Like an algorithm basically. But these both can be utilized for both. So I'm curious if it just be for the just for the majors, or they'll have also the PGA events as well. They do have both of these events, the PGA version events, and 2K, so there's some overlap there. But like the Country Club, this is the U.S. Open last year, so they obviously, that's just a U.S. Open course in the Southern Hills. And they'll probably use these courses for the made-up events, to fill in the calendar, or maybe for the amateur events. Like USAM has been at the Country Club, or Fitzpatrick won it there for both the USAM and the US Open, so they can probably use that for the USGA events as well. But like this one, this is a playoff event course, but then it's moving this year. But if you read down here, they're going to bring out this year's majors courses. So this is the PGA, US, the Open. Those are the courses, so they're going to have these downloadable courses. Does not say if it's free, but I hope it is. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And then Olympia Fields is hosting the BMW, and then they're going to actually release the Ryder Cup course later, or it says for the Ryder Cup. So it's weird. They didn't show the Ryder Cup logo, but it is hosted. It's sort of weird, but I think the PGA of America mostly runs it. So I think that if they got the PGA Championship, it looks like they got the rights for that as well. So that is very promising. So it looks like they have a lot of support as this game goes on, and hopefully it does well, and it kind of rebuilds the series like what it used to be, because I did miss it a lot. But when you go through the course list, we'll go to 2K here. I actually thought I clicked on this already. Oh, yeah, so they've actually added some new clubs like Paynes Valley. That's actually a Tiger Woods course, so that's a difference. They have the exclusive rights to Tiger Woods, so they added his course that he created down there, the Branson, Missouri. It's supposed to be very beautiful. I've seen it played. It looks awesome. But then, they got the Renaissance Cup, which is not in EA Sports, and this is the Scottish one. So that's one of the exclusive tournaments they got. Same with this one. This is actually the Canadian Open. And I did not see either one of these in here. I'll double check here. So, yeah, Renaissance. Nope. And George. No. So, there's a couple of differences where they got a couple of these tournaments that this has. This is actually par 3. So, they've actually got some other modes in 2K that I'm not sure that will be in EA. Like they do the Top Golf. Top of the Rock, I think, is a par 3 course down there. So, it's more like just like little fun games maybe you can do with friends and stuff. Again, not entirely sure the EA they're going to do that or not. Eventually will. They did used to have the Augusta par 3 course in there. Didn't see that at all on their list, so not sure. And then you kind of see the overlap here, the TPCs. That's probably also the big difference. They got more of the TPCs, which is the courses that are owned and operated by the PGA Tour, and that is in EA Sports, but it's about, if I have to take a guess here, they got 4 of them. Well, I think they got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, see, they got 10 of them. They got, and there's a couple reasons for this. One, since they decided to get most of the TPC, it's easy to probably get in those little tournaments because a lot of them are smaller. Like the Louisiana the Zurich. It's kind of like a match play 2-team event. Like 2 players joint form as a small team. TPC Deer Run, which is actually an older school tournament. It's been around a long time. The John Deere, but it doesn't usually get good fields. It's in usually a tight part of the schedule between majors and when a lot of the top players need a week off. But it is good for a lot of the younger players, to kind of get their rise. Like Jordan Spieth won it when he was still kind of like shortly after he won the Masters, I believe, or right before he did. So it's gotten some good players. TPC Boston used to do a playoff event, not anymore. These are some other. But then there's some that are both in this game. Like Southwind hosts the first FedEx Cup St. Jude first playoff event. That's in both games. This is the Waste Management Open, considered one of the funnest events a year. But like this is only in the 2K game. This is the Shriners in the wraparound series. But then they both got Riviera, which both have one of the best non-major events a year. The Genesis, where Tiger Woods actually played at this year. Again, like playoff courses here. This is Copperhead, a regular season event. This is a playoff course. So you see the similarities where they at least got the playoff courses and some of the bigger events like the Waste Management Genesis. But then the big difference becomes like, okay, so they get PGA West, an interesting choice to get the American Express. But then they got like Whistling Straits, that's a PGA of America, that's a PGA Championship course. They actually got Coral Hollow, which is not in 2K. That's actually the Wells Fargo, very good tournament. This is the PGA Championship. This hosted the U.S. Open before. And they got some other courses here that actually don't really host too many PGA events, but I think they've done USGA stuff. But then here you go, like Bay Hills and both. But then you got Liberty National, which used to host the first FedEx Cup event before they kind of changed their schedule a couple years ago. But then they got this one. This is the RBC Heritage, so that's another exclusive here. This is in New Zealand, which we showed in the trailer. That's going to do the Asian the Asian Amateur Championship. They both got Top of the Rock, actually, so that's interesting here. So maybe there is, I'd stand corrected, I didn't see that, so maybe they both got the par 3 elements in here. I thought that was interesting. But then like Bandon Dunes hosts the USGA, and but then this one is kind of back to the LPGA of the Evian Resort does the Evian Championship. So I'm a little hopeful that we might see the LPGA majors, or most of them in it, because if they got the rights from the men's side, they should at least have the rights to 3 of them for sure. The U.S. Women's Open, the Women's PGA Championship, and the Women's British Open, because they got the RNA, USGA, and PGA, and they got the Evian there. Then that's an LPGA major, and the only one that would be missing would be the Chevron, to my knowledge, that isn't in here. That hasn't indicated if it's coming or not. But anyway, that's kind of like towards the end of the video here. Just kind of the course comparisons and the schedule. The big difference, obviously it's going to come down to the majors. Kind of backtrack here, back in here. But like, see, your first major in this game is, they both got the Players Championship, by the way. That's one of the bigger events each year. See, it's called the Legends Championship. It says win any major or top 15 FedEx Cup points for the year. That's kind of how Augusta works. Field size is small. See, this is 88, 600 points. And it's kind of like their own version. So, but there's going to be a difference now. It's actually going to be the EA is going to actually replicate not just the course itself and the actual tournament, but by the qualifications as well. It's why it shows you can do the amateur approach. Because if you do well, if you win the U.S. Amateur Championship, you get an automatic invite into Augusta. I feel like the runner-up also gets an invite, or at least for the U.S. Open. So there's always interesting stuff there. If you really go in the weeds, it'd be interesting if they'll eventually add like maybe the mid-am and stuff, kind of make your own kind of unique career path where like, maybe you just, after college you took a break, or, I'm making like up stories, like an RPG here, but it's like the mid-am is for players 25 and older who are so good but not professional good. So it's like they get their own amateur championship, because a lot of the people in the USAM are a little younger and playing at a higher level where they're usually the winner that eventually becomes pro or goes to college a couple years to get that competitive, more competition and exposure, and then jumps into the pro level, or go to the Corn Ferry Tour, kind of take their chance. So, but anyway, very fascinating what they're doing. So, but I would say overall, I'm very excited for this game. I did like 2K23. I played it a bit. It's just the things that bother me. I think one, here we'll go to my player. This is briefly. Let's see if it zooms in his face. No, it doesn't do that. Anyway, oh, it did. See, it's just they really didn't give me many features. Like they actually took out stuff out. You can actually make him fatter in the last game. But this game is like this is the same body type for all of them. I mean, at least the customization and shoes and clothes is there. Like that's good. It's just the facial stuff. It just they look lifeless. Like, I'll give you a couple examples. Tony Finau, 2K23. Like, this is one of the few golfers in both. But yeah, this is Tony Finau. He looks like that. Like, his eyes are big and they look kind of creepy when you see him in real life. It doesn't look as good. But then you do the EA Sports, which I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's the 2K. Yeah, they haven't done, but I've seen a couple. He looks better in the 2K version when I have seen a brief clip of him. Now, that said, it shows Scotty Scheffler. And he's got like a Joker smile going, so I don't know what the hell that is all about. But anyway. But I look at this, like, at least the graphics look a little better, like, in terms of the play. Because that's been my only big complaint. Not the golf course. Some people complain about the golf course. I think golf courses look fine in 2K, to be honest. Like, they look very decent. It's just more the player models. And just some of the presentation elements. Like, it has Luke Elvey, who's just a really annoying guy on Twitter. I mean, not bad. He's not like he's saying the N-word or something, or cheating on his wife and send a bunch of sexist comments. Just he's become like a very pro-live guy, and he's just, when he wishes Greg Norman happy birthday, it's just like, dude, he's not going to sleep with you. Just stop it, It's like, it's just very pathetic shilling. And he's not a very good announcer, to be honest, in the 2K. The 2K announcers really suck. I think in EA, they're going to have a couple guys from the Golf Channel, which one of them is actually really good. Hopefully they do a trailer, and I like to cover that. But anyway, I do want to wrap this up. I'm really excited. I'm more excited for the courses in this game in 2K. Now, granted, 2K has added some good courses like Pebble Beach, Paynes Valley, Torrey Pines, and it's obviously got some of the good TBC courses. But it's like also at the same time, it's like the best tournaments on the PGA Tour aren't really at their courses per se. At least not all of them. Obviously, the FedEx Cup, the Waste Management Scottsdale, and the Players of Sawgrass is. But the rest of these, like, these courses are a lot more interesting. Quill Hollow is a beautiful course. I've attended a tournament there. Whistling Straits is awesome. It's a link style off of Lake Michigan. Chambers Bay, it's another link style. The U.S. Open's been at. Like, you think of the best courses are really more where the majors go to. And not always. There's some great courses. I said Pebble Beach is on the tour and stuff. But there's a difference between, some of their own courses, especially like, later on, like the Brian Nelson at Craig Ranch. It's not even in both games. It's really funny to me. Like, it's just not, it doesn't make much for TV. It's not very interesting. But then you go, Oco Country Club, that's also major. Like, oh, that's a cool old school early 20th century course. There's a lot more character to it than some of these TPC courses. And I want to be fair. The TPC courses are really nice. They're well run. The tour does a good job. It's more about from an architectural or standpoint of the way it plays or how you watch on TV is different. From the amateur game, you can have a great time. It's just more about the professional game and the differences you do see from like the older, more of these private or special clubs they go to over like the TPC, the tour run courses where they're built more about stands and just finding ways to add people to watch and over the actual like architecture of the course design itself per se. Going way in the weeds there more than I mean to, but you kind of see a difference in some of the tournaments that do held. Like, see, here you go, 7400 TPC. This one's actually a great one. The Riverland Highlands is really good. That's an elevated event. But then, like, Craig Ranch, 95. Twin Cities, 78. So you starting to see a difference here now with some of the TPC clubs and the type of tournaments that are more of the smaller ones compared to, like, Quail Hollow, which actually I think it is elevated. Or like Muirfield, that's Jack Nicklaus designed course and he hosts it. That's 20 million. There's a difference. There's a difference in the level of some of these courses they go to, and that's what I kind of want to get at, especially with the majors and so forth. But yeah, overall, this looks really good. Really excited. I'm just happy for this. Oh yeah, before we do, I do want to go the full course list from the last one. See, they had some other ones. See, they had Muirfield Village, which is the. I apologize. I was going to extend this a couple more minutes. That's not in this game, and yet that's one of the notable. But then it has Oak Hill, so they're adding that as DLC, and they had that in the original game. It was Augusta St. Andrews. But it has Valhalla, not in this game. But again, they haven't hosted a major in a while, so I think that's why. I actually can't remember this, but here's a surprise one. Pine Ice 2 is not in this game. Yeah, it's going to host about 5 or 6 U.S. Opens in the future, and it does the U.S. AM. I think the women's is eventually going to go there. So I'm guessing they'll eventually add it, or if they do another game, it does well to eventually add this, because this is one of the most famous U.S. courses, and the USGA has put like a second headquarters basically down there. But then the rest you kind of see, yeah, so they have a couple more of the British Open courses. Probably the biggest lackluster right now in the current EA. There's only 1 or 2 I've seen so far. Again, though, thanks to DLC, hopefully they add more. And then they kind of, Crooked Stick. That used to host the BMW. It has a couple times, but not in the near future. They both got Kiwa. And then, here you go. They added some more, like World Melbourne, TPC. But then they did a lot of DLC. This would be interesting. Thankfully, they aren't doing this crap anymore. I hated this. But like Colonial CC, that's the Charles Schwab tournament. So, not in this current game. But who knows? They may add tournaments and stuff, because they've kind of done that at 2K, where Pebble Beach was just added later. It wasn't on release day. It came in later. Paynes Valley just came out. And those, as far as I know, they're free DLC, just including the update. So hopefully EA does that too. In the past, they haven't, but they've been a little more... Like, for starters, they've delayed this game a lot longer to get it patched up and be ready. And they haven't really hinted of doing, season pass or anything yet. But again, it's early, so who knows. But overall, very optimistic. I kind of wish they brought... This is like a made-up one they did. It was really awesome. They've only brought back 2 of the made-up courses from the Rory game. But compare the Rory McIlroy game. Again, we'll do one last thing. PGA Tour courses. I think they had only 15? It was really just lackluster. Yeah, they had 8 saves and award, 8 real world courses. While the last one, Tiger Woods game before that, on release had 20. It's a double. You get the story where I had this one. It was 25. So you at least get 20, 25 on release there, where Rory had 8. The one was a Battlefield one, which no one cares. Sorry, it's just dumb. So... It looks like they're at least correcting all the mistakes they've done from the last one, and they're putting a lot of time and effort into it, so I really appreciate EA in that regard, so I hope it turns out well. Anyway, I've rambled a lot. If you're still here, thank you for watching and hearing me talk a little bit between the difference between the games, the actual tour itself, how it's set up, some of the background behind it, and why it's kind of doing this, for those who aren't too familiar with the world of professional golf and the setup, because it is definitely... very convoluted at times, and for those who don't follow it closely to understand the whole structure. But I hope you enjoy this. So I had fun recording this, and I hope everyone takes care.